Hey, it's so good to see you, even though I can't see you. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm so excited that you are here at the Perseverance Podcast, and I got a duo today for you. What's going to be interesting about this interview is that you're going to find that these individuals had two separate lives, and then they came together, and let's just say they became the two blind mice. Honestly, you're going to have to follow them later after this podcast and check out their podcast as well and see how these two blind mice are changing the world in a whole new way. Let's dive deeper into their story and see how they, as individuals, have persevered through their challenges. You ready to go on this journey with me? Let's do this. Persevering is what can allow you to overcome. But you have to find joy in the pain that you live with. It's not going to be easy. But the reward and the character that you will build in persevering through your challenges will be so rewarding. It will give you so much hope. Are you ready to persevere through your challenges? Let's do this. So I got Mary and Philip here, and they're the host of the Two Blind Mice. Welcome to the Perseverance Podcast, Mary and Philip.
Thank you.
Hello. How you doing?
So Mary, I'm going to start with you first. Tell me a little bit about your career as a nurse and what led you to become a nurse, and what was some of the challenges later on in becoming a nurse?
I knew at age 5 I would be a nurse. My mother was a nurse. That was my goal from very young. At 2003, I graduated from nursing school. I worked ER for a while. Home health was my heart. I love to be with the geriatric population because that's where my heart is. And then I was taking care of my husband that was ill. He had dialysis and diabetes, so I would be giving his injections. Come 2015, I took a medication that took away my eyesight. Yeah, I was that 1 in a million that the doctors say, well, it only happens to 1 in a million, and you are that 1 in the million. So that's what happened to my eyesight, which is ironic being a nurse. Also, I have a daughter I was raising at the same time. She was 18 when I lost my eyesight. My husband ended up passing away 2 years later after I lost my eyesight, which in turn, I did do some litigation against 2 doctors that allowed my eyesight to pretty much go away. They didn't save it either, which was in my favor. Raised my daughter. She graduated from high school. She's now at University of Washington getting her PhD in literature.
That's awesome.
I don't know where she got her brains from, but she got her brains from somebody. Well, on this journey after my husband passed away, I went to a dark place. Like, we have to do the grieving process.
Yeah.
Losing your eyesight is like losing a loved one.
Yep, exactly.
You know? So to go through the grieving, the loss, the depression, the anger, all those steps to get past to become a person you are now.
So, Philip, what blew me away when I first talked to you, you wear a badge. So tell me your story.
Well, before I get into my story, I want to say for the record that I'm married to Mary because she adores me, and not because I'm a geriatric, as you put it.
And you're hot looking, right?
Oh, yeah, she's hot.
I wouldn't say I'm not hot looking. I am adorable, though. I really am. Anyway, to tell my story, yeah, I found a lot of things since my vision loss. I started out as a police officer back in 1988. Frankly, I didn't realize that I had RP at that time. Really didn't affect my career in any way. And then in 1997, I was actually diagnosed with it. And, the doctor told me you only got so many years left and it's going to affect your career as a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
So I kept it hidden, and I hid it for as long as I could until I could no longer hide it in 2005. And it ended my career. Public safety is something I enjoyed immensely. It ended it all for me. And just like Mary did, I went to the dark place. I pretty much collapsed. I was, financially ruined because some cops, and myself included, we earn good pay. That went out the window. I mean, my salary reduction was about 65%. My now ex-wife decided that she did not want to be with a blind man and left me and my kids. So I raised 2 kids on my own. I considered suicide because what happened also through all that, I ended up having to have neck surgery due to a job-related injury that had occurred 9 years prior. And as the neurosurgeon told me, that you're about a month away from becoming quadriplegic, so we need to get to work. Now, essentially, my neck is fused. I can't turn my head in any direction. So that caused some balance issues. I'm in chronic pain and so forth. Because of that surgery, I had to be on pain medication. I was at the bottom of my barrel, going through a lot of grief, dealing with a lot of issues with my now ex-wife and everything. So one day I decided I'm going to take a tramadol pill and a swig of beer. And as I was about to start doing that, I heard a voice from the Lord tell me, you're not going to do that. You're not going to let that woman raise my kids. And I stopped. Did I finally start going up the path that I wanted to? No. I still blame God for everything that was going on. Not a good path to go down to, but I have to admit that I do have to blame myself. And this is why. I became a believer in 1983. In 1986, I bought this beautiful Living Bible. And I bought it large print, but just because I liked the way it looked. It was a beautiful Bible that I had, and I had it for many years. And as it happens, when you become a cop, it affects you emotionally, and that led me away from the Lord, and I kept the Bible. It was always hanging around. I've lost many, many things over the last 20, 30 years. That Bible was one thing that I wouldn't lose. It just stuck around, and it was poking at my conscience, right?
Yep.
And one day I picked it up, threw it in the back of my van, and left it there for some time. And then I was feeling convicted. That's the best way to put it. Every time I looked at it, I was feeling convicted. One day I threw it and took it out of the van and threw it on my front porch at my house. And every time I walked into my front door, I kept looking at it, felt convicted, and I ended up throwing it in the trash. And not even 6 months later, that's when my life started falling apart. And the Lord was sending me a clear message that I still wasn't listening. And I dealt with that for quite a few years. And in 2014, I said, I can't do this anymore. And I'm not going to go into detail about the turmoil I experienced because it's a long, long story.
Yeah.
But in 2014, I had to tell myself, you can't do this anymore. And I remember this. It was November 2014. I was sleeping on my mama's couch. And that's significant in my life because I came from a lifestyle where I had a home, 3 cars, money. I had it all. And I was at the point I was sleeping on my mother's couch. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up, felt this sense of depression, and I just threw myself on my knees and I said, Lord, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now here I am today, 9 years later. Wow, time flies. I am blessed beyond belief. And the only reason I know that happened is because I decided to become very obedient to the Lord.
Yeah.
I don't do anything on my own anymore. It's always yes or no according to Him. And that's the way I do things. And here I am today. We have 2 blind mice. We have the White Cane Project.
Yes.
I run a local group called the Coalition of the Blind, the Rio Grande Valley Coalition of the Blind, which, if anybody's familiar with it, it's the very bottom part of South Texas, as far as you can go. Yeah, it's a 4-county area, and we advocate for the blind community here in our area.
Yeah.
And I love it. I recently did a podcast on our podcast called The Two Blind Mice Show. And the topic, I titled it was, I enjoy being blind. And I know a lot of people won't agree with this, but I do. I'm having a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to take a moment, encourage you as the listener. Let's take a look at Mary and Philip's life. Because if we think about their lives, things were going well. But you have to face the reality of the pain. And what we're going to go into next is kind of where some of this pain was, and then how did God pull them out? Because I want you as an individual, as you listen to this podcast, to experience their lives as individuals, but how God used them through their pain. And as Phil just talked about, his journey as an individual and now finding joy as a visually impaired individual. But before we get there, I want us to go through some of the darkest times in their lives. Because you might be going through a dark time in your life, and I want you to know you are not alone. You don't have to walk through it by yourself. But what you can do is look to the skies, look to God Himself, and say, God, give me some joy so I can take the next step to persevere. So, Mary, you lost your first husband, you're raising your daughter, and you lost your vision and turned to drugs and turned to alcohol. Where did you end up starting to see, I'm losing my hope?
I was dating somebody that was bringing me down. I wasn't having a good relationship with my daughter either. Real hard time. You get those thoughts like, well, let's just end it all. Just go walk out into traffic. That was me. And I was like, no, I can't do that. And then God kept telling me, no, you can't do that. You have something more in life to do. So I just started changing. I stopped drinking completely. I pretty much got down on my knees too and begged for forgiveness. He brought me out of it.
Amen. Would you say that journey has made you more stronger today than you've ever been in your life?
Oh, yeah, I would say so.
So,
yep.
Can you explain to us a little bit about some of the steps that you realized when you were in the deepest part that you had to do? So, like you talked about stopping drinking and getting on your knees, but you had to mentally do something. You had to emotionally give up something in your life. When did the joy really come into you?
Well, I had to learn how to give up my pride. I didn't want nobody to help me. I wanted to do it myself. No, I can do it. And no, I couldn't do it. I was blind. Yeah. I had to learn to do things again. I had to accept it. Yeah. That was hard. I had to swallow my pride and say, no, I need your help. Mm-hmm. And I need God's help. And he stepped in and he says, well, I'm gonna make the road for you. And he led me to Phil, and he led me to Chris Cole.
Philip, so tell me a little bit, in the darkest times of your life, as your wife left you and you're in these phases, God still had a hold in your life. When did you start realizing, I could have some joy?
Well, it wasn't an overnight thing.
Yeah.
I had to, like Mary did, beg for forgiveness from the Lord. And really, you don't have to beg. He forgives you immediately. You just got to be the one to take advantage. To add insult to injury, at that point when I finally started deciding to surrender myself completely, everything changed for me. It didn't get better. Believe it or not, it didn't get better. I was at one point homeless. Being blind, I had to go on disability benefits. And for 13 years, I fought Social Security because they kept saying that I broke the rules and so forth and so forth. And I fought them. I represented myself all the way to federal court and back to Social Security. Praise God, in January, the Lord gave me the victory. And I came out on top. But the thing about it is, prior to that, it was in 2015. I sold my home and just moved because my ex-wife had just given way too much grief. And I came back after about 3 years. Spiritually, everything was becoming great, but I was still just trying to make ends meet. It wasn't easy, but instead of worrying about it too much, I just kept moving on, kept trusting God. It just kept getting better and better spiritually. I became stronger, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to settle for just being a believer. I'm going to do something about it. The Lord placed a servant's heart in me. I'm very happy for it. In fact, that's how Mary and I met.
Yeah.
Because at that point, when I met Mary, we were attending the same church, but we didn't know each other. I didn't even know there was another blind person attending the same church.
Of course.
So, yeah.
How could we see each other?
Exactly.
No, anyway, so at the church we were attending at the time, they would take prayer requests, and then the church would pray together before the actual service started. Somebody submitted a prayer request for a nurse who had recently gone blind, and I'm like, oh. Now, at that point, I had started working towards providing resources for any blind person that came across my path, and Mary was the first. I went up to give a testimony that night, and I said to the congregation, if anybody knows who this nurse is, get her in contact with me so I can give her information. And nobody did. I did it a second time a few weeks later. Nobody did. The third time, I did it again. And after the service, this lady came up to us and said, if I could give her the number so she could give it to Mary. She did. And we played phone tag for about 3 or 4 hours. And we finally got together. And here we are today because she said she was praying for a godly man.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I love my God life. I really do. I have fantastic time with the Lord. I don't see myself as a godly man. I see myself as a servant of the Lord. And we met, and in Mary's defense, a while ago, she said that she was just not doing anything. She wanted to do anything on her own. Yeah, she was trouble. She was doing absolutely nothing. She just was having a very difficult time with her vision loss. That's how I met her. And the thing about it is, I got to give her credit. I'm very proud of who she is today, because the woman I met 4 years ago is not the woman I'm about to be married to in October. She's totally different. I'm very proud of her. Not in a worldly kind of way, but in a God kind of way.
Yeah.
And here we are again doing our thing, as blind advocates. We're having a good time.
Yeah.
When I think about the deafblind Potter and what God has been able to do through that, and the people that I've been able to meet because of it, it's one of those amazing moments. It's like I'm getting to see the fruit of the deafblind Potter. Like people saying, because I saw your video during COVID, I never took that pill. Or because I saw your video, you kept me moving forward, that there's hope. And what's beautiful about you guys' story is that, Phil, you had to work for yourself. And Mary needed help to work through that pain. That is one of the beautiful things about God. He always provides somebody to help you persevere through that challenge. As the listener right now, if you're struggling in your perseverance right now, just like Philip was there for Mary, pray for God to bring you somebody to help pick you up. Because in my life, my Uncle Paul was there for me to pick me up. And he still is there to pick me up today. There were key people in my life in the seasons of my darkest times that people picked me up and pushed me forward. Is it easy? No. We talk about my season when I was addicted to pornography. That was a tough time for me. But because I had 2 brothers that kept me accountable on the computer and my phone, and I was able to keep stepping forward. I want to encourage you today. Pray so that way you can build stronger in your perseverance in your life. But God will give you the strength. You don't have to do it alone.
Amen.
If I can add to that, Kelvin, if you don't mind, when I first started using the white navigation cane, I was embarrassed to use it. I was a guy, who was out saving the world as a cop for 17 years. I didn't want anybody to see me because people knew me all over town because of what I did. Now I'm walking around with a cane. I was embarrassed to display it. I really was. I didn't like walking around with my cane, but I had no choice. When you compare to the transformation that the Lord put me through, I don't see the cane as an embarrassment anymore. I see it like Moses' staff. Moses used that to tell people who he was in God. And I love it now. I walk around with my cane with the joy and the pride the Lord has given me.
Amen.
I'm not ashamed to use my cane. And the reason I'm saying this, because I know there's some people that may be listening to this podcast embarrassed to go outside because they don't want people to see that they're blind. They don't want to use their cane because they're blind because of who they used to be. And I'm not going to scold anybody for feeling that way. I went through it. But what I'm trying to say is, if there's hope for me to be where I am at today, it's hope for everybody.
Amen.
And it's not going to happen on your own. You're going to need somebody. You're not going to be able to walk to the store on your own at first. You take that step to start getting yourself some training, get some support, get a mentor, whatever you want to do, your life can change. We've gone through some changes that are sometimes indescribable. I love the life I'm living.
Yep.
Well, I mean, and that's what's so beautiful about it, is God made sure that you were ready, Philip, so that way Mary can come into your life and you can help her guide her through that journey. And now Mary's overcoming, and she's doing her part. And the two of you are truly the two blind mice. That's legit. So as we get towards the end of this, I honestly want to know this. What was some of your challenges when you said I do, and as a married couple being visually impaired, like what were some of the challenges you guys had to work through? Because that's a whole different set of perseverance as blind individuals being married. So
it's actually not that hard because we're both blind. The only hard part and challenges is really not bumping into each other.
And you kind of want to, right?
Well, sometimes I don't want to. Yeah. And him scaring me quite often.
Oh, yeah.
We scare each other all the time on purpose. Because he loves to hear me scream and get scared.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun. The only challenges we really have is transportation is a hard part for us because all of our kids are moved away. We don't really have any family where we live, so it's just him and I. Other than that, we both cook, we both clean, we do everything everybody else does the same way they do it. I was married to a sighted man, and I've been married to a non-sighted man. Yeah. And I will tell you right now, it's been easier to be married to a non-sighted man than a sighted man.
And a man that just loved Jesus.
Exactly. My first husband wasn't that way, so yeah.
Really, she's right. We have a wonderful life together. I love being married to Mary. I really do. We have our ups, we have our downs, but the fact of the matter is we don't let our blindness hinder our fun. We don't.
Yeah.
No.
We have
travel.
We do. We're not afraid. Well, Mary used to be.
Not anymore.
Mary was a big scaredy cat until she ended up over the Crisco Rehabilitation Center. That's the school for the blind. She was a big fraidy cat. Now she's the one telling me, I'm going to Starbucks all on my own in the middle of Austin. I'm like, okay. This is not the woman I married. I'm telling you guys.
Yeah. That's awesome. And what's funny is how we met. It didn't become the two blind mice. It became the three blind mice, and the two blind mice were getting way too excited over legitly a lighted blind cane. So the story is my dad and I were in the elevator at the NFB conference in 2023, and we're just going up the elevator. Mary and Philip come in the elevator, and I had the see me cane on, and I'm just chilling, going up the elevator, and then who noticed it?
It's always me. I talk to everybody in the elevators.
Okay.
I just started talking to you, and you're like, oh, no, we're here because I have the cane. I'm like, what cane?
That's the irony of that encounter. Mary's the one that starts the conversation. I'm the one that had has enough vision to see something was lit up.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we took off.
And the funny part is that, we miss my floor, and then we go up the elevator, and then, Mary, you get off, but Philip gets left behind. We're like, oh, we lost Philip!
It wasn't a coincidence, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I think God put us all in the elevator together for a reason.
Yeah.
So
I said, this was truly an elevator pitch.
But it was like we were a kid in a candy store. We're like, ooh, something new. Let's see it. I want to hold it. I want to touch it. I want one now.
You know what sold me on your cane? Not just the light. Is that you had a marshmallow tip. I love that.
And they're interchangeable. So you can put a marshmallow tip, a metal tip, pencil tip, ceramic tip, jumbo tip.
I like that it vibrated to let you know that the light was on.
Yeah.
Because I don't see light.
Yeah.
I don't see anything. So that was my favorite function of it.
So it cracks me up when we met. And then when you guys did the podcast, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, what is it about? And so forth. And I'd be happy to bring the See Me cane on. And then I did my homework on you guys. And I'm like, oh, no, this is a bigger meaning than I realized. And I'm like, maybe we should have you guys on the Perseverance podcast.
Yeah.
And have you guys share your testimony and show people how to persevere through their challenges. So, so thank you guys for being on the Perseverance podcast.
You're welcome.
I tell you all, one of the most powerful things about Philip and Mary's story is that God had the perfect timing for them. Because if you really think about this whole journey in their life, they had to go through some really painful times individually, But when God brought them together, healing started happening for Mary. But Philip, he ended up using his struggles and his pain and building the strength in himself through his church and the people around him. And so I want to really encourage you today as you persevere is remember your perseverance story is not going to be the same as mine. It's not going to be the same as Philip, and it's not going to be the same as Mary. God is going to create your story individually. So I want to encourage you today, persevere through your challenges, and here comes the Perseverance Corner. We're going to be talking about Ruth. I'm going to paraphrase the story, and we're going to look at Mary and Philip's life together and how they persevered when God brought them together. So when you look at Ruth, Ruth was a widow. Her husband died, and she decided to stay with her mother-in-law when they decided to go back to their hometown because her mother-in-law husband died as well. So they went home, and Ruth started taking care of a field after harvest, and anything that fell, the widow got to keep. And she was noticed by a man named Boaz. And Boaz was like, who is this lady? And he realized her compassion and her heart because she came back to her hometown with her mother-in-law to help support her and provide for her. And she was noticed. Just like Philip and Mary, Philip noticed her when the announcement said that somebody lost her vision and trying to heal through that process. Just like that, God was able to be a part of their life as well. And I want to encourage you, just like in Ruth and Boaz, God had a plan. Same as Philip and Mary's story, God has a plan for them. And one of the coolest things about Mary and Philip, they have a nonprofit called the White Cane Project, and they give away blind cane for free for those visually impaired. And they're together are changing the world, just like God planned. So I want to encourage you, as you persevere through your challenges, don't forget that God has a plan for you, even when it seems so difficult. Because just like Ruth and Boaz, Ruth was just being faithful. Just like Philip and Mary, they're just being faithful. When you're faithful to God, your faithfulness doesn't go unnoticed by Him, and He will provide for you. So, that's the Perseverance Corner. Here comes the announcements. So, first announcement is I'm currently in Colorado, and I'm out here right now working on a fundraising campaign for Northeast Colorado. And last night I did a pottery event at Charlie Momford's house. And if you haven't heard his podcast, I really encourage you to go and listen to his podcast. It was done in April of this year of 2023. And check out his story and how God transformed his life. With this, I'm out here in Northeast Colorado campaigning to raise funds for the See Me Cane. So the next announcement is the Perseverance Through the Bible. I am traveling almost every other week right now. And the Perseverance Through the Bible has been something I love doing, but for me to provide a good quality podcast, I'm doing 6, 7, 8 recordings of the same episode of that podcast to make sure I try to do the best I can do, provide you the best content. And it's become very time consuming. And because of that, as of this month, October, we're going to go ahead and stop so I can continue running the See Me Cane at the speed that it's growing at, continue to raise the funds for the See Me Cane, as well provide the Deafblind Potter content and everything else that I'm trying to do. So as of October, we're not going to be providing the Perseverance Through the Bible, but there still will be the Perseverance podcast, which I still interview people's stories and encourage you to persevere through your challenges through people's stories as well as mine. My next announcement is, if you're a Deafblind Potter fan and you're also a See Me Cane fan and you follow me on social media on Deafblind Potter or See Me Cane, we're going to be combining both of those together. So if you're already on the Deafblind Potter platform on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, we're going to be combining everything from the See Me Cane onto the Deafblind Potter platform. If you're on See Me Cane, I encourage you to go to follow Deafblind Potter social media platform you like, and follow us there, because you're going to get all the content in one spot. Right now, it's been kind of separated, and what we're realizing is because Deafblind Potter is becoming part of the See Me Cane, and See Me Cane becoming part of the Deafblind Potter, we just felt like we'll just put all the content on one platform, make it easier on ourselves, and so that way you can get all the inspiration that you need, and as well all the See Me Cane content that you want, all on the same platform. All the content's still going to be the same, but everything's just going to be together on one platform, making our lives a lot easier. So lastly, when this podcast comes out, will be that Sunday of White Cane Awareness Day. So if you're in Greeley, Colorado area, we're doing a White Cane Awareness Day event at Zoe Cafe, which is in downtown Greeley, and it's going to be at 5 o'clock. Spencer Renfro, Elijah Joe, and myself, we're going to be telling our stories and how God transformed our lives and helped us persevere. And Elijah Joe is going to do a mini concert. I'm going to be throwing on the Potter wheel, telling each one of our stories, and Spencer is going to be telling his story and praying over individuals to live beyond their challenges as well. So it's going to be a fun event as well. We're going to do a White Cane Walk. We'll just go from the park that's nearby, and then we'll work our way to the Zoe Cafe. So all that information will be in the description down below, and you'll be able to get all the details for that event. And I'd really love to see you out there. And there will be a live feed of the event on White Cane Awareness Day. So the link will all be on the website, and the link in the description down below. That wraps up the Perseverance Podcast, and I want to encourage you to go live beyond your challenges. And I'll see you next month. Now you ready to persevere for your challenges today. Thank you for joining me on the Perseverance Podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can email me at kelvin@perseverancepodcast.com. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Deafblind Potter. If you'd like to buy some merch or some Deafblind Potter pieces, you can go to deafblindpotter.com. Please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to the Perseverance Podcast so you don't miss an episode. That way, you and I can continue living beyond our challenges and persevering through them too.